Hello, this is the RPG Pundit, the final boss in Internet Shitlords. And I'm failing to light my pipe this morning. I'm doing another video today on things that they've taught you wrong about how to DM D&D on purpose. And if you haven't seen the previous videos in this series, then check out the rest of my channel. And while I'm at it, I'll mention to everyone to subscribe and to share this video, to press the notification button, the notification bell, because lately I've noticed that some of my social media stuff isn't showing up for some reason. Couldn't have anything to do with Twitter and Google's, efforts to shadow ban people that are politically uncomfortable. So make sure you don't miss the chance to be notified whenever I make a new video. And if you care to, please support me on the Inappropriate Characters Patreon, or you can send a donation via PayPal from my blog website, my blog page. Well, okay, let's get down to business. Today, I'm going to talk about something that's very common these days in kind of game design theory, and it probably, you could say it came out of the Forge, which was a completely flawed and bitterly useless design school of the early 2000s. They believed in these very weird ideas, namely that, they wanted to change the very nature of how RPGs worked. And one of the things that they were saying is that in an RPG, if you have rules for something, then that means it's important. And if something is important, it should have rules in it. And I've heard people repeating this phrase lately, probably not knowing where it originates from, and definitely not getting just how pointless that is as an idea. Hey, got my cat here. She's decided to be in the video today. She's exploring my new cell phone stand, which is thanks to one of my generous patrons. Anyway, anyway, the thing about this idea is that it's one of those sorts of things that sounds really good on paper, right? Sort of like RPGs are meant to tell a story, sounds really good on paper. But it's not actually any good in practice. RPGs are not meant to tell stories, they're meant to create virtual worlds, right? And games, a lot of times in RPG game design in particular, the things that are most important in actual play are the things that do not have to have specific rules designed for them. And a lot of the stuff that has rules designed for them are specifically abstractions that are meant to be a way to get them out of the way easily so you can go on to more important things. So that means that the stuff that does have rules is not necessarily the stuff that's important. And the stuff that's important doesn't always have rules. Hey, don't bump my video camera. Well, what good is it if you bump my video camera? Come over here. There you go. Meow. All right. So let me give you an example of this, right? Because it sounds, again, this is something I can understand why people would understand this, would get this idea in their heads, and why they would see it as something, oh yeah, that makes sense, that's right, that must be right, because it sounds so good and it sounds like something credible. It isn't, though. Like, you think, okay, if it's something really important, then we need to put a rule on it. This is how you ended up with social mechanics in the game, right? And social mechanics are toxic. They're a pox on the game, because the whole point of a role-playing game, there's two things you have to know about a role-playing game. The first is that it is a game. And the second is that in this game, you role-play, right? You don't roll a die to determine how role play happens. You role play. So social interaction is something extremely important, and yet it's something that should not be reduced into a game rule, a game mechanic. It's something that you have to do by playing out your character. Now, on the other hand, if, for example, let's say you're running D&D, and one of your characters wants to have, one of your players wants to have his character run a business, right? Now, you could not have rules for that, and either just wing it, or if you felt it was really important, then what you'd want to do is make a really precise simulacrum that was extremely detailed of exactly how his business would succeed or fail, right? But if you don't actually find it's that important, because it's just what one person wants, and it's just something that's there kind of in the way of the main action, then what you'll do is you'll come up with some really fast sort of mechanic to resolve it. You're making a rule there, not because it's really important, but because it isn't really important, because it's something that you just need to kind of make a ruling about, make a decision about, and you want to create some kind of a mechanic that will get it out of the way. So a lot of times, making rules in a game, an RPG, is in order to get stuff out of the way in a simplified fashion. And the most important stuff, which frankly the one most important stuff of all, is role-playing, is actually playing out the character so you can have that experience of immersion, so you can go deep into your character, into the world that your character lives in, and connect to that in this kind of profound level. That has to happen without the rules. That has to happen beyond the rules, because the rules are meant to actually get everything else out of the way so that that experience of immersion, of being involved in the game, can happen. And in those moments, the really important moments, is where you put the rules aside. I had an interesting thing that happened the other day in my Wild West campaign. There was one player who, somewhere near the end of the session, I forget what it was that he was rolling, but I told him, well, do a skill check for this thing, right? And we were nearly done. Like, we'd been playing, I guess, about 5 hours at that point. So we were close to being finished the game. And that's where he said, oh, wait, I have to get my dice out of my bag. Because he hadn't had to make a single roll all night. And that was because everything he'd done so far had been role-playing, right? The other players had to do rolls because they were doing things that needed mechanics to get to fix stuff, like rolling to see how their business went, rolling to recruit someone, rolling to be in a gunfight, whatever it was that they were doing. They were rolling dice for those things, because those are the sort of things, the less important things than the actual role-playing, that you use mechanics for. If you can take anything out of this little rant of mine, it's basically this. The role-playing part is the part where the rules shouldn't get in the way. And if you're using mechanics to simulate role-playing, you're doing D&D wrong. Get rid of the mechanics for social interaction and just play it. Like, the famous Laurence Olivier quote, right, where somebody asks, oh, what's your method when you interpret King Lear? And he goes, well, why don't you just act it? That's all you need to do in that part. That's the really important thing. And at that moment, just act it. But in the other stuff, that's where you come up with the rules. The rules aren't to do the really important stuff. They're to get the unimportant stuff out of the way so that the role-playing can happen. All right, that's it for today. And again, be sure to subscribe and to support us. I'm going to figure out how to make this stand work right and not keep shifting out of the way and stuff like that. But it's going to take me a while to figure it out. It's not, I don't know, it's counterintuitive in some way. It has some balance issues or whatever. All right, subscribe, patronize me if you can, and if you can't, share the videos, because sharing the videos will draw in other people. It'll call attention to what I'm doing in this channel. It'll bring people to the channel, and that's a huge help if you can do that. So, currently smoking near poker plus country doctor.